Voice of Indonesia.
Voice listener, Indonesia is one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world. Earthquakes, floods, and landslides often threatens the life of the communities. In the context, safe and disaster-resilient housing is not only essential as a place to live, but also as a vital shield to protect families. But how does the government view the importance of disaster-resilient housing for the people? What efforts are being made to promote the construction of strong, safe, and affordable homes? And what are the standards for disaster-resilient building, and how can these be effectively communicated to the public? And to discuss this further, we are joined by Pak Andre Notohamijoyo, Assistant Deputy for Disaster Risk Reduction at the Coordinating Ministry for Human Development and Cultural Affairs. How are you, Pak?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And good afternoon for all of the Voice of Indonesia listener.
Okay, so, but without any further ado, I would like to ask you about how Indonesia is a disaster-prone country, as we know. How does the government view the importance of disaster-resilient housing, especially for the communities?
Yes. Thank you for this opportunity. Indonesia, as a disaster-prone country, has for the potentials for the disaster risk, and we should prepare for all of the disaster risks in Indonesia. We view the disaster resilience housing as the crucial for saving lives, reducing poverty, property damage, supporting sustainable development, and accelerating for the post-disaster recovery. And the government supports this through spatial planning policies in disaster-prone areas, implementing for the Indonesian National Standard Construction Standards, and for the providing development incentives, public awareness campaigns, and building and providing sturdy and safe permanent housing, including for the innovations such as the land banks. And why it is important for the government? The first is the life safety. We should prepare for the building's disaster resilience housing as the key preventive measure to minimize loss of life during disasters such as earthquakes. And the second is reducing property damage, minimizing physical damage to buildings and property, which indirectly reduces repair and recovery costs. And the third, supporting sustainable development. How to build disaster resilient housing aligns with the concept of sustainable development, which is more resilience to the impacts of disasters. And the fourth is the accelerating post-disaster recovery. Communities with stronger housing tends to recover more quickly after disasters. And of course, for the actions and policies, how the regulation standards, how about the incentives, educations and campaigns. This is related to the programs, how to build for the disaster risk resilience for all of the people in Indonesia, and how to conduct education awareness campaigns to inform the public about the importance of disaster resistance houses, and how they can participate in government programs. And of course, for the permanent housing development, and also the land innovation and management.
Okay, so how is the government encouraging the development of public resilient housing among the public itself?
Yeah, The government encourages for the development of disaster resistance housings through various policies and programs, such as the providing financial incentives for risk subsidies or low interest loans, establishing strict constructions regulations and standards, providing technical assistance, of course, yeah, and training and campaigns to raise public awareness of the importance of disaster resistant housings, because now we still face for the lacks of the cultural yeah, for the culture for the disaster risk, and we should raise the public awareness of importance of the disaster resistant housings. In addition, the government maps disaster prone areas should be understood by all of the peoples. Then implements for the land bank concept for land allocations and collaborates with various stakeholders such as business and banks to accelerate post-disaster housing development. And we should defined for the policies and regulations, for the construction standard, disaster hazards maps, and land banks. And of course for the financial incentives and technical supports and education and training. And it is about the professional educations for the implementing for the education and training programs for the engineers or the contractors or the architects on the latest techniques and material in earthquake resistance constructions, for the awareness campaigns, of course, how to conducting public education campaigns to raise awareness for the importance of disaster resistance housing and how to participate in government programs. And of course, the collaboration and participations, multi-stakeholder participations, how to gathering the participation from various parties such as the local government, the private sectors, how to support post-disaster housing reconstructions, and of course for the role of community organizations, such as for the encouraging community to collaborate with the regional disaster management agencies such as BBBD in disaster preparedness activities, including funding and implementations. Of course, we should talking about the sustainable approach. Of course, thank you.
Okay. So the next question is, I would like to ask, how is the government promoting public awareness and education on the importance of disaster resilient housing? Because that is actually one of the most interesting thing to know, especially for the citizens around Indonesia.
Yeah. The government promotes awareness of disaster resilience housings through community-based initiatives, education, educational partnerships, of course, recent communications, public awareness campaigns, and integrating risk-based planning into national strategies, often supported by the organizations, of course, from the regulations such as the National Disaster Management Agency or BNPB. It is how we to the integrating risk-based planning into national strategies, and the key strategies include sharing information of disaster risk, developing community-specific preparedness plans, training local disasters management teams, and encouraging participation in simulations. It should divide it into first how to the risk-based planning and knowledge sharing. It is very important for us, disseminating risk informations. The governance strives to ensure communities understand the specific disaster risks they face, such as earthquakes or floods, mostly from the hydrometeorologic disasters, enabling the people to take appropriate safety measures. And the next is to integrating resilience into national plans. National strategies incorporate resilience planning, which involves developing institutional capacity and using funds to support disaster risk reduction and management. And the second steps is the community engagement and capacity building. Yeah, we know that the disaster resilient village programs from the initiatives such as disaster resilient village programs in Indonesia, yeah, aim to build resilience at the village level and how to improve preparedness and response capabilities and this participatory approach, of course, for the involving communities in developing and implementing their own preparedness and recovery plans, fosters greater commitments and builds cultures of resilience. And the next is the training and educations. These programs contents for the trained community members and local volunteers, such as those in the Indonesia, Tagana, yeah, Tagana programs in Indonesia under the social ministry, how to become disaster preparedness and response for all of the stakeholders. And we should strengthening for the partnerships and educational materials, of course, but how the government partners with educational institutions to integrate disaster risk reduction education into the school curriculum and create relevant educational materials for the youth mobilizations, of course, engaging youth groups and maybe in the peer educations to help disseminate awareness and preparedness message to a wider audience for the public awareness campaign and community, of course, how to launch for the national campaign to raise awareness about disaster risk and promote safety measures, and how to promote housing specific measures. Public awareness campaigns inform residents about housing specific safety measures, such as structural considerations for building in earthquake prone areas. We know the examples from the disasters, yeah, the earthquake disasters in the West Java, yeah. We should learn about that. The public awareness campaigns should strengthening. That the people must understand about how to build back better in after the earthquake. We see in we see in the West Java, yeah, and it is very important. We see the example in Cianjur, Cianjur in 2022 and 2023. It is most it is the most challenges how to raise awareness about disaster risk and promote safety measures, and how the public awareness is very important about housing specific safety measures.
Okay. So, for the final question, I would like to ask you, what are the standards for disaster resilient housing, and is there standards attainable for the public in terms of affordability and practicality? Because that is the key points on when citizens buy a house, between the affordability and also the practicality of the house price itself.
Yeah. For the housing standards, must focus on the engineering principles to resist specific hazards like earthquakes, floods, and storms, often involving stronger materials, specific construction techniques, and safety systems. Essentials achieving these standards for the public depends on the local building codes and regulations. Must be for the how to achieve for the safety systems for the regulations for communities. Affordability and practically require balancing these high standards with economic feasibility through policy, accessible financial aid, and the use of locally appropriate and cost-effective materials. For the example, standards for disaster resilient housings, such as the structural integrity, how to design building to withstand seismic activities such as earthquakes, for the high winds or storms, and other specific hazards by using appropriate materials and construction techniques. We should strengthening for the designing building to withstand seismic activity, and the building codes adherence to local or national building codes that are incorporate disaster resistance requirements tailored to the specific risk of a given region. And the next is hazard specific design. Hazard specific design, incorporating features like flood resistance foundations, fire resistance materials, or reinforced roofing and walls. And how to make sure the safe systems, how to ensuring the essential building systems are designed to functions or are easily restored after a disaster event. It is the important things for the standard for disaster resilient housings. And of course, we should consider about the cost, yeah, how to implementing these advanced standards can increase construction costs, and it is a major barrier for affordability. So we should how to the affordability solutions such as the financial aid and subsidies, local capacity, affordable materials, practically construction considerations.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pa Andre, for your time and answers for all of the citizens and people of Indonesia on finding the best and the most practical housing, especially for Indonesia. And thank you so much for a listener for accompanying me in this special interview. And stay tuned with us for more amazing interviews like this, only on Voice of Indonesia, where you can tune in through our online streaming voinews.id, shortwave in 3325 kHz, 4755 kHz, and our application on RRI Digital. Stay tuned with us always in Voice of Indonesia, from Indonesia to the world.
Voice of Indonesia.